Welcome to our meditation conversation. Let's begin this week with a meditation. So let's find a comfortable seated position and begin to connect with your body. Close your eyes, settle into your seat, connect with the earth through your feet, through your legs. Then notice your hips above your legs. Notice your torso stacking above the hips. Let's roll our shoulders up to our ears and down and back, keeping them soft and relaxed while we sit. Line the neck over the shoulders. You can slightly tuck the chin and reach with the crown of your head up to the sky. So for this meditation, let's do a breathing technique. We'll do the equal inhales and equal exhales. So we'll inhale to the count of 5 and exhale to the count of 5. And we'll do that a few times together, and then you can continue to do that on your own while we sit in silence. So settle into your seat. Now clear the air out of your lungs with an exhale. Now let's inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. And exhale. 2, 3, 4, 5. So you can continue that pattern on your own while we sit here for the next few minutes. When you're ready, slowly deepen your inhale. Start to come back to the body. So how's everyone doing now? Good?
Mhm.
Great. Any questions about anything before we start talking? Um, Great. So tonight I thought we could start with a little discussion about feelings. So I'd like to hear what you think about kind of what are feelings and what's your relationship to feelings? How do feelings influence your life? Probably should have given you some time to think about this because it's kind of a big question. But this is somewhat better. It's like what's your first instinct? Don't think about it too much. Just yeah. I mean, what do you think about? What comes to mind when you think about feelings? How do they affect you? What's your relationship with them? Just kind of what do you think about feelings?
It's funny to say, what do you think about feelings? Um,
Yeah.
uh, it's kind of the opposite. It's just, um, it's feelings. It's what you feel, and it's not necessarily something that you can rationalize or not. I guess I've always been told that I'm too sensitive or overly sensitive, which I take to mean that I feel things kind of deeply, and but it can also be somewhat indulgent too. I think you can kind of take that and run with it a little bit, and so there's got to be a balance of having feelings, maybe being buoyed or beaten down by those feelings, but I think to keep it in perspective, that it's kind of like a tide coming in and out in a way, because the very same thing could happen on another day and you wouldn't feel hurt, or you wouldn't feel, um, in quite the same way. So I think it just depends on the day.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
if that's what came to mind.
Cool. Yeah. Great answer. How about you, Carla? Do you want to weigh in?
Yeah, I think it was like, there are feelings like how I feel and emote, right? Then there are times where feelings can be about, an opinion, right? Like how you feel about a thing. And then there's also just like the deep knowingness around like gut feelings or your deepest intuition, or even the outcome of an exchange with another person, whether you end up feeling good as a result of the interaction or lousy about it. And then also just how you can change your feelings depending on how you think about it, right? So it's kind of a loaded question. So I think
Mhm.
there are a lot of layers to it. And there are times where you just kind of want, sometimes the right answer is I just gotta feel into that a little bit, because it's like, where are the layers and where am I going to land and meet this situation or this question or this person. So yeah, and then of course I keep thinking of that 70s song Feelings, so which is just kind of a karaoke favorite, but I'll spare you. But it's in my mind.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Great answer. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, obviously, there's no right or wrong answer.
Mhm.
I Googled this a little bit because I started thinking about it. I'm like, well, yeah, what exactly are feelings? And I looked in some psychology articles, and like you were saying, Carla, the professionals, the psychologists, they kind of define it in layers of complexity. Like you were saying, there's the very basic feelings that we're kind of born with, you know, sensing hunger, sensing hot and cold, the things that they're often associated with your physical expressions, right? You kind of can't help but react to things. So I mean, there's our very basic reactions to physical stimuli, things like that. And then as we get older, they get a little bit more complicated, and like you said, they get layered, like kind of physical sensations become more part of mental processes, and then you get more complicated emotions, and sometimes emotions can get combined together, and you have layers of emotion. So yes, definitely a very complicated uh whole lot of stuff going on there with feelings. Yeah. um, and it's great what both of you said, that um even though feelings are very important, and I think, and I've talked a lot about the importance of feeling our feelings and being in tune with our feelings, and especially because a lot of us grow up to and learn to kind of repress our feelings or ignore them, especially the negative feelings, and or even all, like you were saying, Gina, if we're told we're too sensitive, we learn to distrust our feelings or just try to kind of stuff them down or ignore them. So it's very important to get in touch with our feelings if we're cut off from them, and be able to feel them as they arise and be in tune with them and allow them to process through our bodies. But at some point, we also kind of do need to critically evaluate them, because um, from an evolutionary standpoint, feelings, I've talked about this a little bit before, but essentially feelings, if you look at them from the standpoint of evolutionary psychology, feelings are kind of like cattle prods that natural selection uses to guide us either towards good behaviors or away from bad behaviors. And that sounds pretty good on the surface, but like I've talked about before, or so I don't know if you guys remember from when I talked about this before, but what's the one goal of natural selection? Do you remember when I talked about this?
It's the propagation of of the species.
Yeah, exactly. Like the only thing natural selection cares about is making us have as many offspring as possible. And so that's how feelings evolve. They evolve to steer us towards behaviors that maximize our chances of having offsprings and away from behaviors that minimize our chances to have offspring. And so in some cases, those align well with our physical health, because being healthy, being strong and fit, that often maximizes our chances to have offspring. So a lot of our feelings are geared towards things that are going to be healthy for us. But like I think, like I've talked before, we evolved in a very different environment from what we currently live in. Modern humans, physically, we evolved something like, depending on who you ask, like 12,000 years ago or 20,000 years ago. There's varying estimates, but a long time ago, when very different environment, when we were hunters and gatherers, and it was a struggle to find food. And so some of those behaviors and some of those, the wiring in our brains no longer function to guide us towards good behaviors. So I think I've talked about sugar here. I know you heard this a couple weeks ago, Carla. I've talked about how sugar has become misaligned in our modern day, because that, were you here when I talked about this one time, Gina, about how sugar circumvents our evolutionary um, circuitry? Well, so sugar, we're back when we were evolving, the only source of sugar was fruit, and fruit is healthy for us. There's, you know, lots of antioxidants and vitamins and nutrients, so fruit's really good for us. And so when we evolved, it made sense in evolutionary terms to make sugar highly attractive to us. And that's why it directly stimulates our dopamine release. So when you eat sugar, it gives you this jolt of dopamine, just like hardcore drugs do. Because back in the day, it made sense for us to kind of treat fruit like crack because it wasn't available very often, and it's very good for us. So when it was available, it made sense for us to be motivated to eat as much of it as we can. So that made sense 12,000 years ago. But now, with the invention of junk food, that no longer makes sense and no longer serves us because it still feels good to eat sugar. But now, with the availability of empty calories and junk food and candy, now it feels good to us to do things that are bad for our health. It feels good to eat candy. It feels good to eat cookies. But if we just listen to that instinct, only if we only listen to that feeling of how it feels when we eat sugar, we're motivated to eat, gorge on sugar. And this is a big reason for a big contributing factor to the obesity epidemic right now, because our brains are maladapted for this modern environment. So that's one example.
It's a different kind of sugar, though, too. I mean, fruit is one thing, and you get that sugar, but the sugar that people are binging on,
Right.
just I
Pure-
think about a
yeah.
Coca-Cola, that has so much sugar in it, and people drink several a day, and that's just not sugar. It's corn syrup, basically.
Right. Yeah. It's just pure refined glucose that, just
Yeah.
goes straight into the bloodstream. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's just one example where our feelings no longer serve us, right? Because it's still, and I struggle with sugar myself sometimes too, because it feels really good to eat sugar. You get that straight dopamine rush. And so that's one place where we have to take a critical look at our feelings and see, is this feeling really serving me in this situation? And so that's one kind of simple example, just on uh, from one of these more simple emotions, just having to do with hunger and taste. But this also carries forward into more complex emotions, things that happen in relationships and things like that. So, for example, a lot of the coping mechanisms that we develop, or that some people develop in response to stressful childhoods, those those develop based on feelings. But then the feelings associated. So one example is people that grow up with abusive parents, and they associate love. They come to associate love with pain. So because love and pain are kind of they always experience those together, pain can start to feel good to someone who develops a coping mechanism like this, and so that can lead them into more painful situations that feels good on one level. And so that's just another example of where we need to critically examine our feelings, and especially anytime we have very strong feelings, that's a good time to take a take a breath and take a moment and sit and kind of critically evaluate our feelings. And so when I say that, one way, so some techniques for evaluating emotions, and this is what I do myself when I notice myself kind of, sometimes, do you ever catch yourself consumed by an emotion, and you can sense that you're acting a little bit irrationally, and you don't quite know what to do, but you're just feeling all kinds of strong emotions. You're not sure how to act. So in those situations, a technique for kind of getting control of your emotions again is first to start with breathing. I think I've talked about this before. Any kind of breath pattern where you consciously lengthen the exhale is going to help us calm ourselves down. It actually calms the heartbeat down, calms the mind down. So anytime you breathe out longer than you breathe in, that can help you slow down. And then if you're feeling a really strong emotion somewhere, a good technique to start examining that is to ask yourself, where in your body are you feeling that emotion? Because oftentimes emotions are associated with a particular feeling. Like maybe you're feeling it in your stomach, maybe you're feeling it in your shoulders, maybe you're feeling it, or it could be just more in your head, or maybe like in your throat. Yeah. So anytime you're feeling a really strong emotion, stop and try to notice, where are you feeling that? 'Cause this is a way to start bringing our conscious attention to the feeling and to start critically examining the feeling. And then another question to ask yourself is, what is the texture of this feeling? So is it a dull feeling? Is it a sharp feeling? Because sometimes feelings, they can have different textures. It can be like a dull ache, that if you're in sadness, sometimes it's kind of more dull, kind of just radiates out from your stomach, versus anger is more sharp sometimes. So this is another question you can ask yourself, to just start examining the emotion. And then you can ask, when have I felt this emotion before? Try to bring yourself back to other situations, and what how did I act on that emotion in the past, and how did that turn out? I mean, so this is how if you want to start trying to figure out how you should act on the emotion, start thinking about when you felt this emotion in the past, and then how you acted on it, and what kind of outcomes it came from those examples. So these are just some examples or some tricks and some techniques for becoming more mindfully aware of our emotions and learning how to critically examine our emotions. And because I've done this myself, and I think I've talked about it before, but when you're caught in a really intense emotion and you walk yourself through these exercises and you really examine them and really feel them, then you start they don't control you as much. You're not as enthralled to them. I mean, they're still there, but you notice that, oh, there's this emotion here, and it doesn't consume you as much. So so that's something to think about the next time you find yourself caught in some kind of intense emotion, or anytime you can do this as just kind of an exercise in mindfulness also. Anytime you're feeling any strong emotion, just take the opportunity to examine it and see what you learn, see what you notice when you go through that process. So any questions about that? Any comments?
Uh, I agree with so much of what you're saying. And I would also just posit that when you do look back at a feeling and like, have I felt this before? Sometimes the next step for me this, is this like a trigger from like the past thing that I'm responding to, or is this actually about the situation at hand? And I
Right.
think sometimes catching myself like, is this a situation at hand, or am I just like dredging up all the other times from when I was a kid that this kind of like vibe happened? And so I find that even asking that question is, how much of this is actually about the here and now, or how much of this is like over time, just, layers and layers. And and I find like that has actually been a great coping mechanism, or a great way to kind of get a handle on things before getting overly emotional, or letting the feelings get away and out of control. So before the train leaves the station, I can kind of catch myself.
Yeah, great point. And yeah, I think, yeah, like you're saying, especially anytime you find yourself having what seems like an inappropriately intense response to something. Yeah,
Oh,
that's
me? Never.
I'm not talking about you. I mean, it's happened. I've talked about it before, I think. Yeah, I mean, anytime you have a really strong emotional reaction to something, that if you're surprised about how strongly you're reacting to something, that's usually a sign it's tapping into some kind of repressed emotion you have, or some kind of existing coping mechanism. So yeah, definitely, that's a good point. Mhm. Yeah.
We definitely hold a lot of those memories in our bodies. And it's interesting when we can connect those things together and see, the progression is maybe not the right word, but just to be witness to it and to recognize it. And like you say, just let it not have control over you, how suddenly you can shift it.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Once we start recognizing these patterns, we can have a lot more control over how we act on those emotions. Because even though every emotion we have is valid and real, we don't always have to act on it. I mean, we always have to acknowledge our emotions and feel them, but we don't always have to act in the way that they're compelling us to act. I think that's where rational thinking comes in. That's what makes us rational, critical thinking beings.
Well, it's interesting though. I feel like there's a lot of anger that's in the air these days, and I think certainly on the political spectrum, it feels like it's coming out a lot more. And I just wonder, like, collectively as a society, why are we so angry? Where is that coming from? Like, what's the root of that? And is it just that people are unhappy and feeling unfulfilled, or is there something more to it? I don't know, but I feel like the anger piece is really so much bigger than it ever was.
Yeah, I have my personal opinion on that. I think, like you were saying, for for a long time, there's been a lot of people kind of living those lives of quiet desperation, right? A lot of us living unfulfilled lives, kind of stuck in jobs and that we don't necessarily like in order to pay for houses that we may not want and support our families and all that stuff. But then when the COVID happened, then I think there was a whole lot of fear and uncertainty, right? Because all of a sudden it's like no one knows what's going to happen. There's all this fear, people losing jobs, losing homes, and we're not good as a culture. We're not good at dealing with fear, and I think that a lot of that got repressed and started coming out as anger. So, so that's my personal opinion about why in this past year we saw it did seem like an epidemic of anger, like so many people angry everywhere, politicians especially, but just kind of, I mean, you saw it on social media. All of a sudden there's like just angry comments everywhere and people screaming at strangers. Yeah, I think a lot of that was repressed fear from this last year. And
Well, maybe in some ways it's a good thing that it's coming out, because if people are living their lives unfulfilled and feeling um, repressed in some way, I mean, maybe it has to come out and then move forward from there. I don't know. I like to think that we're in a phase of, maybe we're in sort of the low ebb, but that we're going to rise again. I'm hoping, because it's just too depressing to think of the alternative to that.
But yeah, well, hopefully, and I kind of hope that anytime there's a big crisis like that, it shakes up the existing status quo and it can provide room for growth in new directions. And so hopefully we'll see some positive changes coming out of this. I think we've seen some with changes in allowing people to work more from home, and yeah, hopefully we'll continue to see some positive growth come out of this crisis.
So,
Yeah, can hope. All right, let's meditate again. Would kind of like to teach a meditation on a feeling, but it's kind of hard if you don't already have an intense feeling going on. So I don't know if that'll actually work. um, but let's just do another one of those mindful awareness meditations. So let's find a comfortable seat. Get settled into your body. Feel your limbs, feel your legs, feel your arms. Become aware of your breath. So you don't have to control your breath. You can become aware of it without controlling it. Just notice the natural inhale and exhale, the natural rhythm of your breathing. Now let's bring our attention to the crown of our head, that point at the very top of your head. Can you feel that point? So now imagine at that point just a feeling of peace and calm that starts to radiate from that point down the top of your head. So it spreads out across the top of your head and kind of curves around, following the curve of your skull. Just allow that peace, allow that calm to flow down your head, all around your head. Feel your forehead relax, your eyebrows, your eyes, your eyelids. Maybe squint, press your eyes together tight, really tight, and then allow them to relax. Allow your ears to relax. Allow your jaw to relax. Maybe move it back and forth a few times. And maybe clench your teeth, clench your jaw real tight, and then allow it to relax. And continue to allow that cool calmness to spread down into your neck, feeling your neck unwind, allowing those muscles to relax. If there's any tension, see if you can just let it flow down your body. And let the relaxation spread into your shoulders. Might feel good once more to roll the shoulders up to your ears and down and back. Feel that calming sensation continue to spread down through your chest, through your clavicles, shoulder blades. You feel the outside of your arm. Allow that cooling, relaxing sensation to spread down to your ribs, your elbows. Can you feel the point at the tip of your elbow? Become aware of that. Then your forearms, the muscles in your forearms, your wrist, your hands and fingers. Let's clench our fingers into a fist. Squeeze them really tight and then relax the fingers. You feel your fingertips, very tips, fingers. And then just allow your hands to relax wherever they are. Let's move back into our torso, in those ribs. You feel the sides of your ribs, maybe brushing where your arms are brushing against them. And can you feel your abdomen? Maybe tense up those abdomen muscles, squeeze them really tight, then relax. Allow that relaxation to continue down into your hips. You feel where your hips are meeting the seat, meeting whatever you're sitting on. Feel the sides of your hips, the bottoms, the back. Become aware of any place your body's making contact to a surface. And continuing to allow that relaxation to spread in the legs. Let's clench those big muscles in the legs, squeeze them really tight, and then let go. Feel that relaxation spreading down to the knees. You feel your kneecap, about the side of the knee, the outside, the inside. Then continue moving down into calves. Let's clench those calves really tight and relax those. Slowly let that calm, let that peace spread down into your feet, to your ankles. Can you feel that bony part of your ankles on the inside and the outside? Feel your heel, the back of your heel, the bottom of your heel, and the bottom of your foot. Can you feel the top of your foot? Is it rubbing against socks or shoes or anything? Or maybe it's just bare, you can feel the air on it. Moving into your toes. You feel them rubbing against each other. Feel the very tips of your toes, the tip of that big toe, the tip of that the middle toes, the pinky toe. Can you feel that pinky toe? Now let's take a deep inhale, filling our lungs with air. As you relax, just allow relaxation to cascade down through your body. Just a big wave of soothing, calm spread down your body. Take another deep, full inhale. Once again, just allow relaxation to sweep down your body, washing away any stress, any tension, anything that's not serving you. Just let it all wash away down your body. Take one more full inhale, filling your lungs with fresh air. And then once more, just let it all go. Now let's just sit for a few more minutes, feeling this awareness of your body, feeling this calm all throughout your body. And once more, deepening the inhale. Bringing your awareness back into the physical. How was that?
It was nice.
Oh,
Really nice.
great. So there's one more thing I wanted to talk about. So building on what we were talking earlier about the critically evaluating our feelings is using that to change behaviors that if there's certain behaviors that we want to change, unproductive patterns that we're sick of acting out, particularly around addictions. And that's another way that kind of our mental machinery gets hijacked by modern times is with addiction. Things like nicotine, caffeine, alcohol. They again those lots of these drugs kind of artificially stimulate dopamine or other receptors in the brain, so they kind of bypass all of the natural machinery, just go straight to stimulating pleasure centers, and so that creates these modules and loops in the brain that we have to overcome. But we can use this critical evaluation to help with that. And there's programs out there like mindfulness-based strategies for treating addiction. And this is what I'm going to talk about is kind of similar to those. And I'll use an example from my personal life that I'm dealing with right now is nicotine. Because I've kind of struggled with nicotine on and off throughout my life. Um, I stopped for a long time when I was studying with my teacher. I mean, for a good 10 years, I didn't smoke at all, and I didn't even think about it at all. Thought I was done with it. But then I moved to Costa Rica, and I started dating someone who smoked, and so then I started smoking too, and then it kind of worked its way back into my brain for a couple years. I was kind of smoking on and off. I quit again uh, at the yoga teacher training because that was a good chance. This new environment, new stimuli, none of those old associations. So that was good. I quit then and didn't smoke at all. But then on this road trip, I was kind of hanging out with some people who smoked again, and I started smoking a couple times, or went through some stretches where I smoked a lot of cigarettes. Then I got back here and started craving cigarettes. And I'm like, I don't want to start smoking here because I don't want my life here to be associated with that. But I was having these cravings for nicotine, right? And so these are again these feelings that don't serve us, that feeling of craving nicotine. And in the past, when I've failed to resist those cravings, it's because I just try to resist them, right? Just try to push them away. Like I'll feel a craving, like, no, I don't want to feel that. Just kind of shove it try to ignore it, just try to think of something else, try to pretend it's not there. But inevitably it keeps coming up and it keeps coming up. And then I find myself like half consciously driving to a gas station. Like part of me is driving, but then there's this other part watching me like, what are you doing? What are you doing? This is a mistake. Don't do this. But I'm still driving there and I go buy the cigarettes. And then I get home and I'm like, this is a mistake. I shouldn't be doing this. But still, this other part of me just lights up that first cigarette. And then I'm like halfway through it and I'm like, this is disgusting. Why am I doing this? I should just throw these out, but I don't because I don't want to waste them because it's like $15 for a pack of cigarettes these days. So then it's just this whole mental thing. But so this time I'm trying a different approach. Instead of trying to push away the craving, it's like when it comes up, just sit with it. And so there's a technique called RAIN. I don't know if you've heard of that. RAIN stands for recognition, acceptance, investigation, and then non-identification. So recognition, the first step, like realizing, oh, I'm having this craving for nicotine, right? I'm having this craving for cigarette. And then so that's the first step, recognition. And then acceptance, just instead of trying to push it away, just accepting, okay, I'm feeling this craving. and then investigation. So this is what I was talking about before, like critically evaluating that feeling. Like, okay, where am I feeling this? What's the texture? And and also, so if there is some kind of craving like this you want to investigate, think through, like really sit with it and imagine what it would be like to indulge the craving. Like walk through that in my head, so like I was saying, imagine remembering what it's like in the past when I indulge it and go buy these cigarettes and then hate it and feel bad about it and feel bad about myself and don't even really enjoy it, and it's just disgusting, and then my hands smell like smoke and my hair smells like smoke, and it's in it tastes like smoke, and so this has really been helping this time. So and just by indulging the thought, when the thought comes up, don't I'm not trying to fight it, just really investigating it, really fully examining it, fully feeling it. And then just like it says in the books, like it's then I don't wind up later half consciously driving and going to get the cigarettes, because I'm allowing the craving to just kind of express itself and dealing with it and um, investigating it and kind of breaking that cycle instead of just trying to repress it. So that's I don't know if anyone has any addictions or cravings you're struggling with. This is a process that can help apply mindfulness to changing behaviors that we don't want to change.
So is it working for you? Are you
Yeah.
feeling so you're having success in not driving to the store and
Yeah.
buying them?
And the cravings are getting less. They're lessening intensity and frequency. And this is kind of different because it wasn't a really strong addiction. I mean, I think, like, if someone was treating a lifelong smoker, they'd probably you can use these mindfulness techniques also, but also they'd probably supplement them with nicotine replacement and other things as well, because
Yeah, because it's a I mean,
right.
it's physical, it's physiological. It you
Yeah.
are your body is feeling withdrawals without the nicotine. So it's not just a mind
Right.
thing. It's a body thing as well, which I would imagine is harder. I think that's probably why quitting smoking is so hard for people.
Hmm.
But isn't it true, don't you think, that some people have a tendency to be have more of an addictive personality than other people?
Sure, and I definitely have an addictive personality. Yeah, I struggle with that in many things, like sugar. I've talked about
Mhm,
caffeine, uh,
mhm.
not alcohol in the past, not so much now anymore. But yeah, I mean, all those things. Definitely, some people have addictive personalities, and some people less. I think some of astrological signs are good markers for that. I think often Sagittarius often struggles with smoking, and but I'm sure some of the other personality indicators address that as well. Yeah.
Interesting.
Hmm. But yeah, and there's studies that have shown this, like, how mindfulness-based approaches for treating addiction are just as effective as anything else out there that's being used. So
Wow.
Nice.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I hope you continue to, be on that path and can let it go and get back to a place of not having that come up as much.
Right. And that's the other thing, because I talked about this a couple weeks ago with about how our behaviors are driven by feelings. And so if there's some pattern, some behavior we want to change, instead of just fighting the behavior we want, fighting the feeling that we don't want, cultivate the opposite feeling. So think about how it feels good to not smoke, and feed. So it's all about, there's these different loops of feelings and then rewards, and feelings and rewards. So, and you can one way to get rid of one particular loop is to build another loop that based on a different feeling and a different reward, so that kind of like out competes loop that you want to get rid of. So I've been working on feeling how it feels good to not smoke. It feels good to not feel that nicotine coursing through my blood, not smelling the smoke all over me. So yeah.
And also maybe people that you associate with too. Like sometimes certain behaviors come up when you are associating with certain people too.
Definitely.
So to try to seek out people that have similar ways of being in the world, kind of,
Mhm.
or not, live a healthier way than maybe the people that, you're drinking with or something, because there's definitely association
Oh,
that
okay.
comes up with certain individuals, I feel like.
With people and places as well. And,
Right. Right.
mhm.
Activities.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Just stay in your house, lock the doors, don't let anyone in. Except Waylon. He can stay.
Wayne can stay. Well,
Yeah.
he's sleeping through the whole thing
I
today.
know, I saw that.
Yeah, he's not crawling all over you.
No, did you hear him snoring? My goodness, so
Oh, no.
rude. But no, I feel you, Matt, on that whole kind of who you're with, how that kind of affects what you take into your body, um and even just like the coping mechanisms around that. Um, and so just, meet yourself with some compassion, guy.
Yeah, I am. And I mean, at this point, it's just like, it's more just annoying, like
Yeah.
seeing this all play out in my head. I'm like, come on, this again. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, no, I did a similar thing with coffee where I got myself down to just one cup of coffee and then I was like switching off to green tea and that
Mhm.
was nice. And then I don't know, I went to a friend's house and she poured me a cup of coffee and I'm like, oh my God, like a 3 o'clock coffee feels so good. And then I went home the next day and like for a week I started brewing myself afternoon coffee and I'm like, you were completely off of this. You remembered how good it felt, but like, you don't need it. And so I kind of just had to, but I was, doing that for a week and then I just reeled it back in. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I can definitely relate.
Yeah. No, I mean, I used to have a pack a day habit when I was in my 20s.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah. And there are times even now I'm like, damn, a cigarette would be really good right now, you know?
Yeah.
But I think when they cut the cigarettes in the city, like when you couldn't smoke in bars, I think that made it really,
Mm.
you didn't have your two friends together. So
Right.
it
And
was,
that's when I
Yeah,
started smoking.
drinking and smoking does really go well together.
oh God, it was just so good. So,
Well,
um,
back when you could smoke in bars, it was just like everyone was smoking. You were smoking anyway if you were there. So it was like, you might as
yeah,
well.
this is a great conversation starter. Give me a like, and I bum a cigarette, whatever. I mean, it was just, there was definitely a social component to it.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But anyway,
Well,
so you have my empathy, and I believe you can kick it. We're rooting for you.
Yeah.
we are. And it sounds like your approach, though, of like sitting with it, observing it, it's not an approach that you're not beating yourself up. You're just like
Okay.
being really kind and compassionate with yourself and recognizing, like, oh, this craving's coming up. Because I think the beating yourself up is probably doing more harm than good anyway in the long run,
Yeah.
right? And like, oh, I'm such a jerk. Why am I doing this again? And
Right.
that doesn't help.
No.
So, yeah, it sounds like this approach is a good way to kind of check all the boxes of compassion and
Yeah. Yeah. And it's a much easier approach too. Yeah. Mhm.
yeah, because probably not many people smoke up there. I don't know. Is it
Well, there's still quite a
Maybe
few.
not cigarettes.
true? Good point. Yeah.
Well, no, well, even I mean, around Arcata, because it's a college town, so I think it's more like walking around downtown. You see a lot more people smoking.
Hmm.
cigarettes. Yeah.
Hmm.
$15 a pack.
Well, it's not. I think it knows. It's only. Well, I don't know. I don't know what it was in Wisconsin. I bought a pack in Wisconsin, and it was like $10. But I think in California, it's more like 15.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, are people smoking like the actual cigarettes in a pack, or are they smoking the whatever those things are called? Those
Vape.
cartridges?
Yeah.
Vape.
No, there's
Yeah.
still a lot of cigarettes around.
Because
Mhm.
I know vaping was really big in my son's high school.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I still. I mean, you still see them for sale everywhere, so they must still. It must be still pretty big because you see them like in gas stations everywhere. So
Mhm.
yeah. All right. Well, we're out of time. Do you want to do one more meditation?
Sure.
All right. Okay. So let's settle into our seats. So in the past, we've done heart chakra meditations and we've done third eye meditations. So let's try to combine the two of those together in this one. See, let's try to focus on, hold our attention on our hearts and our third eye simultaneously. So this is like a little more advanced technique here. So let's settle into our seats. Feel your body, feel your connection to the earth. And then, like we've done in the past, feel love coming into your heart. So let's restart a little bit, a couple breaths. We've done in the past, breathing in love, and then exhaling that love into your heart. And maybe you remember how that felt, and so you can kind of hold on to that feeling of the love in your heart. And while you're still holding on to that love in your heart, also start to breathe into the third eye, the chakra. And so see if you can hold your attention on both the heart and the third eye at the same time. It's kind of, might feel like just kind of a whole little cylinder there in your body from your forehead down to your heart. Just kind of feel or imagine or visualize that whole area lighting up, filling with light, filling with love. And so while we meditate the next couple minutes, just continue to do that, filling your heart and your third eye with light and love, being aware of both of those energy centers in your body. Slowly deepen your inhale. Bringing yourself back into the body. How was that meditating on two chakras at once?
It was nice.
Yeah. Did it feel a difference? I mean, did you notice kind of the difference?
I think at first I was thinking light and love, and then ultimately it kind of just came together because at first I was maybe overthinking it a little bit, like, how am I supposed to do two? Then but yeah,
Yeah.
it was nice.
Cool. You're muted. You're muted.
You were saying like a cylinder. I kind of had that feeling too. It sort of was out. I can't explain it, but it was emanating from here and here, but it was out here.
Oh, cool.
So, yeah.
Wow. Great. Okay, well, that's it. Sorry, we ran a little bit late today.
No worries.
Time well spent for sure.
I thought so too.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah. Well, thanks everyone. Thanks for coming. See you next time. And our yoga teacher training reunion's coming up real soon.
Wow.
That's so exciting. I saw they're full. I wonder
Oh yeah.
how many people from outside of our training are going to be there.
I have one friend from outside who's coming. She did her
Really?
yoga teacher training in the city. And when she lived on the peninsula, we used to go to Nick's class. And so she's coming out from the East Coast.
Wow.
And yeah.
Staying
So
with you.
we're gonna stay at the Olima house and have like a little girls trip. So yeah, I think that's gonna be really great. And Tim is threatening to come and like have a bath in my tub in the room. So, and that's totally fine.
I can see it.
You know, right? I'm like, don't forget to blow out your candles.
Right. Right. Fun.
Yeah. Are you gonna have a full house, Gina, or are folks staying with you?
I know Matt's staying, and I'm pretty sure Deja is, but I haven't heard anything from her. So
Oh yeah.
I don't know. We'll see. Whoever wants to come can come, and we'll see what people are up to.
Awesome.
We're going to be out of town until the 20th, so
Oh wow.
I'm going to be newly home. So yeah.
Good.
Yeah, it was fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I hope the weather cooperates.
Me too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hopefully.
Aw.
It should be good, right? That time of year. You know,